They tried to steal my $10 million property because I bought it for 25 cents and thought I'd be too stupid to fight back. Listen to this absolute garbage. I'm a divorced plumber who legally bought abandoned lakefront property at a tax auction. 25 cents. That's it. Fast forward 1 year, after busting my ass restoring this Colorado mountain cabin with my own hands, some HOA witch named Delilah Thornfield rolls up in her luxury SUV claiming I don't own jack squat. The smell of fresh pine still lingered in the air from my morning sawing when she stepped out, designer boots crunching on my gravel driveway, waving legal papers like some kind of conquest flag. "This property belongs to the HOA now," she declared, that practiced smile dripping with condescension. $10 million. That's what my quarter investment became worth. And this woman actually thought she could just take it. What would you do if someone tried to steal your legal property using fine print and intimidation? Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Let me back up and tell you how a broke-ass plumber ended up owning paradise, and why one vindictive HOA queen nearly destroyed everything. 6 months earlier, I was Marcus Kane, 52, living in a Denver apartment that reeked of microwave dinners and broken dreams. Fresh divorce. Ex-wife Jennifer took half my tools, half my savings, and apparently half my will to live. But hey, at least she left me the pickup truck, probably because it smelled like pipe joint compound and had more rust than paint. I'd been hitting weekend tax auctions, hunting flip properties. Most people think these events are boring. They're wrong. There's this electric desperation in musty courthouse rooms, the squeak of wooden benches under nervous investors, auctioneers rattling off lot numbers like carnival barkers, the metallic taste of anxiety thick in recycled air. My carpenter father taught me to see potential where others saw problems. That Tuesday morning, scanning the auction list, one entry jumped out: Whispering Pines Cabin, 15 acres lakefront, minimum bid 25 cents. The photo looked apocalyptic, rotting roof, shattered windows, but lakefront in Colorado, that's liquid gold, baby. 2 hours later, I'm winding up Highway 285, gravel crunching under worn tires, when Lake Serenity appears like a postcard. The cabin sat on pristine shoreline, Rocky Mountain peaks reflecting in crystal water. Hand-hewn logs from the 1960s, foundation straight as my plumbing levels. Sure, it needed everything, electrical, plumbing, a miracle, but the bones were solid. I'm measuring the foundation when this spotless white Escalade glides up, engine purring like a pampered Persian cat. Out steps Delilah Thornfield, silver hair shellacked into submission, designer hiking boots that probably cost more than my monthly food budget, clutching a clipboard like Moses with the tablets. "Excuse me," she announces, voice carrying that special authority reserved for PTA presidents and mall security guards. "I'm Delilah Thornfield, president of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association." I wave my tax deed. Marcus Kane, new owner. Her smile could freeze July. "Oh, sweetie, tax sales are cute, but they don't supersede our covenants." She produces a brick-thick manual. "This structure violates 17 community standards, demolition required. Here's where it gets good." I explain the cabin predates any HOA by 40 years, should be grandfathered under pre-existing non-conforming use. Basic property law. "I'm sure a tradesman like you doesn't grasp legal complexities," she purrs, that tone rich women use when explaining why the help is confused. "But we've successfully removed 12 non-compliant properties. Our attorney has an impeccable record." The mountain air suddenly felt thinner. This woman was on my land, threatening my property, talking down to me like I was some knuckle-dragging mouth-breather who fell off the turnip truck. "Lady, I bought this legally. I'm restoring it." Her expression shifts, still smiling, but now there's something predatory lurking underneath. "Mr. Kane, you clearly don't understand how things work here. This is an exclusive community. We maintain certain standards." She steps closer, voice dropping. "People like you usually find it easier to simply walk away." People like me. There it was, the subtle knife twist. Blue-collar guy. Probably didn't go to college. Definitely doesn't belong in her precious mountain paradise. "I'll give you 72 hours to reconsider," she continues, climbing back into her climate-controlled fortress. "After that, you'll discover we have very effective ways of protecting our community's interests." As her Escalade disappeared in a cloud of dust and entitlement, I stood there gripping that 25-cent receipt. The distant cry of a hawk echoed across the lake, and I swear the mountains themselves seemed to be holding their breath. My dad always said bullies only understand one language. You stand your ground and show them you're not backing down. I just didn't realize this particular bully had lawyers, connections, and a decade of experience crushing people exactly like me. Week 1 of Operation Cabin Restoration turned into a masterclass in petty tyranny. And let me tell you, Delilah Thornfield had a PhD in making people's lives miserable. Monday morning, I'm hauling debris when this official-looking pickup rolls up. Out steps Bryce Thornfield. Yes, same last name. A soft-bodied 20-something wearing a reflective vest and the dead-eyed expression of someone who peaked in high school hall monitor duty. Kid looked like he'd struggle opening a pickle jar, but apparently he was the HOA's compliance officer. "You parked incorrectly," he announces, scribbling on a citation pad with the intensity of Hemingway crafting a masterpiece. "Vehicles must be positioned parallel to property lines, not perpendicular." I stared at my truck sitting in my own damn driveway. "Are you serious right now?" $500 fine, he says, ripping off the pink slip with orgasmic satisfaction. Tuesday brought a citation for unauthorized construction noise because I operated a circular saw at 9 a.m. Wednesday, improper waste storage for having debris containers in a construction zone. Thursday, landscaping violations because I hadn't planted petunias around a foundation I was still rebuilding. The absurdity was breathtaking. Each citation carried $500 fines, threatening property liens if unpaid. Delilah's strategy was death by 1,000 paper cuts, bleed me financially until I surrendered. But here's what she didn't know. Plumbers learn to think around problems, and I'd spent years dealing with code enforcement bureaucrats. That weekend, I hit the county records office, a dingy basement that reeked of mildew and governmental incompetence. 3 hours digging through filing cabinets revealed beautiful truth. Whispering Pines HOA was established 8 years ago. My cabin, built in 1962. My dad once told me about a concept from his construction days, something about old buildings being protected from new rules. Turns out lawyers call it pre-existing non-conforming use. Basically, if your property predates the regulations, you're grandfathered in. Like being born before seatbelt laws, nobody can retroactively force compliance. Monday morning, I found myself in Caldwell & Associates, a strip mall law firm wedged between a nail salon and a vape shop. The waiting room chairs had seen better decades, and the coffee tasted like it was brewed with regret. But their paralegal, Zoe Jamie, had sharp eyes and student loans big enough to motivate serious effort. "This is actually fascinating," she said, studying my documentation. "HOAs have limited authority over pre-existing structures. Your cabin has significant legal protections. We filed a motion challenging their jurisdiction. Every one of Delilah's citations, legally worthless toilet paper. But I wasn't just fighting in courtrooms. That evening, I launched Cabin Restoration Chronicles on social media. First video, time-lapse debris removal set to classic rock, showing decades of neglect melting away to reveal potential. The transformation was dramatic, like watching archaeology in reverse. Comments exploded. "This place is going to be gorgeous." "Stick it to the HOA, Karen." Following from Canada Team Marcus, local hardware store owner Pete Rodriguez started offering discounts after seeing the videos. "That woman's terrorized this community for years," he muttered, loading lumber. About time someone stood up to her. The neighborhood split predictably. Half the folks quietly supported me. Anonymous, encouraging notes appeared under my windshield. The other half suddenly found their flower beds fascinating whenever I waved. Fear of Delilah ran deep around here. Wednesday evening changed everything. A note tucked under my truck's wiper. "She's done this before. Check the Kellerman property on Maple Ridge Road." Thursday morning, I drove 20 minutes to a modest subdivision. The address led to a vacant lot with a for sale sign that looked Clinton-era vintage. Grass grew through cracked foundations where someone's home once stood. Whatever happened to the Kellermans, it wasn't good. My first viral moment happened Friday. I posted pressure washing footage, decades of grime dissolving off hand-hewn logs, revealing gorgeous craftsmanship underneath. The video exploded, 50,000 views in 6 hours, shares from DIY channels nationwide. That evening, I stood on the cabin's restored porch, golden hour light painting the mountains amber, distant loons calling across the still water. Day 7 update, I told the camera. Delilah thinks paperwork and fines will break me, but every citation proves I'm doing something right. The sweet scent of pine sap mixed with sawdust drifted in the evening breeze, the smell of honest work and growing dreams. Tomorrow we tackle electrical work. This cabin isn't just being restored, it's being reborn. What I didn't realize was Delilah was watching those videos too, and my growing online support was about to make her very, very angry. Monday morning, week 2, I'm installing new electrical outlets when gravel crunches announce trouble. County Building Inspector Harold Fleming emerges from his official truck looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, probably because he'd rather be anywhere else. "Work stop order," he mumbles, slapping a bright orange sticker on my door like a parking ticket from hell. "All electrical work requires permits you never applied for." I stared at him. I filed applications 3 weeks ago. No record. Fleming consults his tablet with the enthusiasm of a man reading his own obituary. $10,000 daily fines until compliance. 10 grand. Per day. For work I was legally qualified to perform on property I legally owned. It was like getting fined for breathing without a permit. That afternoon, County Office Clerk Janet pecked at her keyboard with all the speed and precision of a sedated sloth. 20 minutes later, she finds my applications buried in a miscellaneous folder. "Huh, that's weird," Janet says, adjusting glasses thick enough to spot satellites. "These keep getting misfiled." About as weird as Harold Fleming playing golf every Thursday with Guess Who at Pine Ridge Country Club. A delightful fact I discovered thanks to their social media page celebrating member spotlight moments. Nothing says conflict of interest like a building inspector taking putting lessons from the HOA president trying to destroy you. But the Kellerman mystery was about to pay serious dividends. I tracked down Robert Kellerman at a tackle shop in Durango, where he was buying fishing lures with the shell-shocked expression of a veteran who'd survived suburban warfare. Delilah Thornfield? His laugh carried enough bitterness to kill houseplants. "That woman's a goddamn vulture. Harassed us for 2 years. Citations, fines, mysterious permit problems." The pattern was surgical. Relentless harassment designed to force below-market property sales. But here's where it gets interesting. Delilah's husband owned Thornfield Construction, which mysteriously appeared to buy distressed properties at fire sale prices. My uncle went through a nasty divorce once, and his lawyer taught him a golden rule that stuck with me. When someone's trying to force you out, always ask who profits from your misery. "Beautiful craftsman bungalow," Robert continued, testing fishing line with hands that trembled slightly. "Forced to sell for $60,000 to cover legal fees. 6 months later, Thornfield Construction flipped it for $300,000. Back at the cabin, Zoe examined Harold's work stop order like she was hunting for Jimmy Hoffa's signature. "This inspector failed to disclose his relationship with HOA leadership," she announced. "Textbook conflict of interest violation. We filed an ethics complaint faster than you could say community standards." Within 48 hours, Harold's work stop order was suspended pending investigation. Apparently golf buddies don't make great legal witnesses. Meanwhile, my social media following exploded like a gender reveal party gone wrong. The electrical installation videos struck gold with DIY enthusiasts nationwide. I'd explain basic wiring while installing outlets, and comments poured in from electricians offering support and sharing their own permit nightmare stories. "Day 14 update," I told the camera, standing in the cabin's half-finished kitchen. Golden evening light streamed through new windows, illuminating sawdust motes dancing in the air like tiny fireflies. "They're trying to stop progress with bureaucratic garbage, but check this out." I demonstrated the new electrical panel, explaining how modern breakers prevent house fires. The video went nuclear, 200,000 views in 24 hours, follower count hitting 6 figures. Pete from the hardware store introduced me to Harold Whitmore, a retired judge whose sharp eyes missed nothing and whose coffee actually tasted like coffee instead of filtered disappointment. He studied my documentation with surgical precision. "Procedural errors everywhere," Harold muttered, adjusting reading glasses. "This inspector's work is embarrassingly sloppy. And this HOA harassment pattern." He shook his head. "Classic property manipulation scheme." Harold offered free legal consultation, immediately spotting enough violations to torpedo Delilah's campaign. But the real game changer came when local news reporter Sarah Martinez called. "I've been following your restoration story," she said, voice carrying that hungry curiosity good journalists possess. "Mind answering some questions?" 30 minutes later, Sarah had enough material for a 3-part investigative series exposing Delilah's tactics. Turns out, other property owners had complained for years, but nobody had documented everything like my daily videos were doing. That weekend, I launched a GoFundMe, Help Save the 25-cent Cabin. Within hours, donations flooded in from viewers following the restoration journey. $25,000 in 1 week, enough to fight Delilah's legal war without eating ramen for the next decade. Sunday evening, I sat on new front steps watching sunset paint mountains purple and gold. The distant call of loons mixed with gentle waves lapping my dock, carrying the pine-sweet scent of mountain air. But as I checked donation totals, headlights swept across my driveway. Delilah's Escalade pulled up, and even in growing darkness, I could feel fury radiating from her silhouette. Round 3 was about to get very, very ugly. Delilah didn't just exit her Escalade, she erupted like a designer-clad volcano having a midlife crisis, clutching a manila envelope thick enough to stop bullets. Her expensive perfume couldn't quite mask the stench of pure desperation. "Mr. Kane," she announced with the theatrical flair of a soap opera villain, "I'm serving you with official fraud allegations." She thrust the envelope at me like it contained radioactive waste. Inside, formal complaint claiming I'd obtained property through fraudulent means, alleging I knew about HOA restrictions, and deliberately deceived the court. The legal language was dense enough to require translation software. "Criminal investigation begins Monday," Delilah continued, that predatory smile stretching across her Botoxed face. "Fraud carries serious penalties. Prison time, asset forfeiture. Everything you've built here, gone." Tuesday morning brought the sheriff a decent guy named Rodriguez who looked like he'd rather be wrestling alligators than serving legal papers. Marcus Kane was now officially under criminal investigation for property fraud, carrying potential 20-year federal sentences. The media narrative shifted faster than a politician's promises. Anonymous tips flooded news stations with cabin con man stories, claiming I'd scammed my way into prime real estate. My restoration videos' comment sections became toxic wastelands filled with fraud accusations and demands for confession. Delilah's character assassination campaign went full nuclear. Professional quality flyers appeared around town depicting me as a carpetbagging criminal invading their peaceful community. The graphic design work looked expensive odd for supposedly grassroots outrage. Fake online reviews carpet-bombed my plumbing business. "Marcus Kane is a fraud. Don't trust this criminal." Canceled appointments flooded in as customers fled after seeing news coverage. 20 years building a reputation destroyed in 48 hours. The harassment reached personal levels when someone contacted my ex-wife Jennifer, fishing for dirt about my supposed criminal history. Poor woman called sobbing, confused about reporters asking whether I'd committed fraud during our marriage. "Marcus, what the hell?" Jennifer cried over static-filled phone connection. "They're saying you stole a cabin." My GoFundMe donations cratered as public opinion soured. The internet's beautiful that way. One day you're David fighting Goliath, next day you're the villain wearing a black hat. But while Delilah was busy destroying my reputation, Harold Whitmore was quietly destroying her legal foundation. Wednesday afternoon, he discovered something magnificent. Delilah had never properly filed HOA incorporation documents with the state. "This is absolutely fascinating," Harold said, spreading paperwork across his mahogany desk like a master chef arranging ingredients. "The Whispering Pines HOA doesn't legally exist. My grandfather was a union organizer back in the day, and he taught my dad about something he called fake authority, people who act like they're in charge without actually having legal power to boss anyone around. Turns out lawyers have a fancy term for this, acting ultra vires, which is Latin for, you're full of shit and have no real authority. If an organization isn't properly incorporated, it can't enforce rules, issue fines, or file lawsuits. Every citation Delilah had issued, legally worthless toilet paper. The research got better. County records revealed the original property surveyor was Delilah's father, who'd mapped the development in the 1980s. Historical surveys proved my cabin was never included in HOA boundaries, specifically excluded as a pre-existing lakefront parcel. Delilah knew this. She'd known all along her phantom HOA had zero jurisdiction over my property, but harassed me anyway, hoping I'd surrender before discovering the truth. Friday brought beautiful vindication. County DA announced the fraud investigation was baseless. No evidence supported criminal charges, everything dismissed with prejudice. Harold's documentation proved my property purchase was completely, utterly, magnificently legal. But the real momentum shift came from my online army. Social media following had exploded to 500,000 people watching this David versus Goliath story unfold in real time. The hashtag Cabin Justice hashtag trended nationally as supporters rallied around the underdog fighting corrupt authority. Local businesses started displaying "We Support Marcus" signs. Hardware store, coffee shop, gas station, regular folks sick of watching Delilah terrorize neighbors with her imaginary power. County officials quietly announced they were reviewing all HOA-related permits and citations from the past decade. Other harassment victims came forward with horror stories, creating an avalanche that buried Delilah's credibility under tons of documented abuse. That weekend, a professional appraiser spent 2 hours measuring, photographing, and consulting comparable sales. His conclusion hit like lightning. My fully restored lakefront property was worth $2.8 million. 25 cents to $2.8 million in 4 months. Not bad for a divorced plumber with a dream. Sunday evening, I stood on my dock watching sunset paint the mountains gold and crimson, still water reflecting peaks like a perfect mirror. The crisp mountain air carried the scent of pine needles and wood smoke from distant cabins, while an owl's haunting call echoed across the lake. My phone buzzed with Sarah Martinez's text. "Big story breaking tomorrow. You'll want to see this." Delilah's house of cards was about to collapse spectacularly, and I had front row seats to watch justice finally served. Monday morning brought the discovery that changed everything. I was cleaning the cabin's basement, a musty dungeon that smelled like decades of forgotten dreams and mouse bachelor parties, when my crowbar hit something metallic behind a loose wall panel. Hidden in the wall cavity sat a rusted metal box, sealed tighter than my ex-wife's new boyfriend's wallet. Inside, wrapped in yellowed plastic that crackled like ancient parchment, the original 1962 property deed, hand-drawn surveyor maps, and a folder marked Mineral Rights Assessment. My hands literally trembled as I opened that folder. A 1980s geological survey estimated rare earth mineral deposits worth $8 to $12 million beneath my property. Lithium, copper, traces of gold, the holy trinity of tech industry raw materials. The musty paper smell mixed with my own nervous sweat as I read numbers that made my head spin. Everything suddenly made perfect, crystalline sense. Harold Whitmore's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips when I spread the documents across his desk. "Sweet Jesus, Marcus, this completely changes the game. Mineral rights transferred with your tax sale. You own everything beneath this property." My uncle's old mining stories came flooding back. How he'd learned that in America, when you buy land, you typically get everything from the center of the earth to the edge of space, unless specifically excluded. Surface rights, subsurface rights, the whole geological sandwich. That afternoon, Sarah Martinez's investigative bombshell detonated across local airwaves. Her 3-part series revealed the ugly truth. Delilah's husband's construction company had filed for bankruptcy 6 months ago, drowning in $2.3 million debt to creditors. They desperately needed cash to avoid personal financial ruin. But here's the beautiful, twisted kicker Delilah knew about the mineral deposits all along. Her father's old surveying files contained copies of the geological assessment, probably sitting in some dusty filing cabinet for decades, like buried treasure. Her months-long harassment campaign wasn't about HOA rules or community standards. It was pure, calculated, old-fashioned greed wrapped in suburban respectability. "She's been sitting on this information for years," Sarah explained during our recorded interview, voice crackling with barely contained excitement, waiting for the perfect moment to force a sale and claim those mineral rights for herself. The legal implications hit like a freight train loaded with karma. My 25-cent tax sale included full mineral extraction rights, worth potentially 10 times more than surface property value. Delilah's systematic harassment now qualified as criminal conspiracy to defraud, with federal racketeering charges dancing in the distance. Harold translated the legalese. "She tried stealing a winning lottery ticket by convincing you it was worthless scratch-off." That evening, sitting on my dock watching sunset paint the mountains gold and amber, I faced the biggest decision of my life. A mining company had already called, offering $8 million cash for immediate extraction rights. $8 million would solve every financial problem 3 generations of my family might ever have. I could sell, walk away filthy rich, and let someone else turn this pristine wilderness into an industrial moonscape, or choose something different. The lake's mirror surface reflected towering peaks, while pine-scented air carried the haunting call of loons to their mates. This place had healing power. I'd felt it during every day of restoration work, watching stress melt away as I rebuilt something beautiful with calloused hands. That night, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. Instead of selling to mining interests, I announced plans for limited, environmentally sustainable extraction funding a public conservation park. 90% of land would remain permanently protected, with ecotourism cabins providing ongoing community revenue. The reaction was thermonuclear. Social media exploded with support from people tired of watching beautiful places destroyed for quick profits. Environmental groups praised the conservation approach. Tourism boards projected 100,000+ annual visitors, bringing millions in economic impact. But the real power shift was psychological. I wasn't some broke plumber fighting an HOA anymore. I was sitting on a $10 million fortune and choosing community benefit over personal greed. Delilah had spent months trying to steal Fort Knox, and the vault was about to slam shut on her fingers. Tuesday morning, Harold Whitmore's law office transformed into a war room that smelled like fresh coffee and righteous fury. Maps covered every surface, legal documents stacked like ammunition, and a team of volunteers that would make the Avengers jealous. Harold led the legal strategy with the precision of a surgeon and the enthusiasm of a kid on Christmas morning. "We're filing a civil RICO lawsuit," he announced, adjusting his reading glasses. "Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, designed to take down organized crime." Sarah Martinez documented everything for her expanding investigative series, camera rolling as Harold explained how Delilah's systematic property targeting constituted a pattern of racketeering activity. In layman's terms, she'd been running a criminal enterprise disguised as community leadership. My dad used to tell stories about union organizers in the 1970s who'd document every single company violation, building cases brick by brick until the whole corrupt structure collapsed. Same principle here. We had years of evidence showing Delilah's repeated pattern of harassment, fraud, and extortion targeting vulnerable property owners. Environmental lawyer Rebecca Torres joined our team pro bono, specializing in conservation easements and sustainable development. A fierce woman with silver-streaked hair and the negotiating skills of a hostage negotiator, she'd helped establish protected lands across 3 states. "Limited mineral extraction can fund conservation indefinitely," Rebecca explained, spreading geological surveys across Harold's conference table. "We establish a trust, extract maybe 5% of deposits, protect the rest permanently." Local contractor Miguel Santos organized volunteer construction crews like a general marshalling troops. Word had spread through the trades: plumbers, electricians, carpenters volunteering weekend labor to complete park infrastructure. The brotherhood of calloused hands rallying around one of their own. The legal strategy was elegant in its simplicity. We'd seek treble damages under RICO 3 times actual losses, potentially $30 million in penalties for Delilah's attempted theft. Harold had already filed criminal referrals with the FBI for mail fraud and extortion. My accountant, a soft-spoken woman named Lisa Jamie who could make spreadsheets sing opera, helped structure the nonprofit foundation. The 25-cent Conservation Trust would manage sustainable mineral extraction, fund park operations, and provide educational programs about property rights and legal self-defense. "Economic impact projections are stunning," Lisa said, clicking through financial models on her laptop. 50 permanent jobs, $5 million annually in tourism revenue, and endowment funding for perpetual land protection. The construction renaissance was beautiful to watch. Every weekend brought dozens of volunteers, retired contractors sharing expertise with young apprentices, families bringing picnic lunches and staying to help. The sound of hammers and laughter echoed across the lake as my simple cabin restoration became a community celebration. Local businesses provided materials at cost, treating the project like a barn raising from pioneer days. Pete Rodriguez's hardware store became unofficial headquarters, bulletin board covered with volunteer schedules and progress photos. Sarah's investigation had revealed 12 other properties targeted by Delilah over the years, families forced from homes through systematic harassment. We established a victim support fund, offering legal assistance to anyone seeking restitution for Delilah's past crimes. My social media following exploded to 1.2 million people watching this David versus Goliath story unfold in real time. Daily construction updates mixed with legal education, explaining how property rights work, what HOAs can and can't do, red flags for harassment campaigns. The educational center took shape in the cabin's renovated interior. Interactive displays would teach visitors about mineral rights, conservation easements, and legal self-defense. Free online courses covered Property Rights 101 with downloadable templates for common disputes. Rebecca worked her environmental magic, securing partnerships with 3 universities for ongoing ecological research. The preserve would become a living laboratory studying sustainable extraction methods and habitat restoration. Media attention intensified daily. National news networks requested interviews, documentary filmmakers acquired story rights, and my humble restoration project became a symbol of ordinary people fighting corrupt authority. But the sweetest revenge was watching Delilah's empire crumble in real time. County officials launched comprehensive reviews of all HOA actions over the past decade. Other harassment victims came forward with lawsuits. Her phantom organization's complete lack of legal standing meant every citation, every fine, every threat was actionable fraud. Friday evening, I stood in the nearly completed visitor center, golden light streaming through new windows onto polished hardwood floors. The air smelled like fresh paint and possibility, mixed with pine scent drifting through open doors. Miguel appeared in the doorway, hard hat tilted back, genuine smile creasing his weathered face. "Marcus, we're ahead of schedule. Park opening ceremony next weekend?" Outside, volunteers were installing the last trail markers while families explored the new boardwalk extending over Lake Serenity. Children's laughter mixed with the distant call of loons as sunset painted the mountains purple and gold. The 25-cent cabin had become something bigger than anyone imagined, a symbol of what happens when ordinary people refuse to let bullies win. But first, we had to finish destroying the bully. Delilah's desperation reached new depths when she realized her carefully constructed empire was collapsing faster than a souffle in a thunderstorm. If she couldn't steal my property legally, she'd try destroying it the old-fashioned way, like a toddler smashing toys she couldn't have. Tuesday morning brought the scent of diesel fuel and betrayal. I arrived at the construction site to find equipment vandalized with surgical precision sugar in gas tanks, slashed tires, hydraulic lines cut cleaner than a surgeon's incision. Thousands of dollars in machinery sat crippled in the crisp mountain air. Miguel Santos surveyed the carnage with the grim expression of a paramedic at a car wreck. "This wasn't random teenage vandalism," he said, pointing to precise cuts in hydraulic hoses. "Someone knew exactly what they were targeting." Anonymous threats escalated from passive-aggressive notes to outright intimidation. "Accidents happen on construction sites," read one message slipped under my windshield wiper. "Smart people know when to quit while they're ahead." But our security cameras installed after the first harassment wave caught pure gold. Bryce Thornfield, Delilah's soft-bodied nephew, skulking through shadows at 2 a.m. like the world's most incompetent cat burglar. His reflective vest practically glowed in infrared footage as he sabotaged equipment with all the stealth of a marching band in a library. The intimidation campaign spread like a virus. Pete Rodriguez found his hardware store windows decorated with soap-scrawled profanity that would make sailors blush. Miguel's work truck got keyed in the grocery store parking lot, deep scratches spelling out "Go home" in crooked letters. Elderly volunteers started receiving late-night phone calls, heavy breathing, vague threats about consequences for troublemakers, the kind of amateur-hour intimidation that only works on people who've never dealt with real bullies. My insurance company dropped coverage faster than a prom date with food poisoning, citing terrorism risk after the vandalism reports. Apparently, property insurance doesn't cover wars with deranged suburban warlords. But while Delilah was busy playing amateur terrorist, my private investigator was documenting her financial freefall. Jerry Kowalski, a rumpled ex-cop who survived on gas station coffee and determination, had been digging through public records with bloodhound persistence. "Your HOA queen is financially hemorrhaging," Jerry announced, spreading documents across my kitchen table like a coroner examining evidence. The musty smell of old paperwork mixed with coffee as he revealed Delilah's empire of debt. Husband owed $2.3 million to creditors. Foreclosure proceedings hidden from HOA members. She'd been embezzling association funds to pay legal fees, robbing Peter to sue Paul, as my grandmother used to say. The beautiful irony emerged. Delilah's harassment campaign was costing more than she could afford. Lawyer fees, crisis management consultants, hiring professional saboteurs. She was bleeding money faster than a punctured main artery. Jerry's investigation revealed the master plan: systematic targeting of vulnerable property owners, with my cabin as her golden parachute to avoid bankruptcy. My 25-cent purchase had accidentally torpedoed her retirement scheme. Meanwhile, FBI agent Rebecca Foster took serious interest in our documentation mountain. Sharp-eyed woman who spoke in measured tones and missed absolutely nothing. She interviewed me for 3 hours in my kitchen while recording every detail. Pattern crimes like this rarely stop with one victim, Agent Foster explained, her voice carrying quiet authority earned through decades chasing white-collar criminals. Your documentation probably prevented dozens of future targets. The community rallied like villagers facing down a dragon. Local businesses formed protective alliances, volunteer security teams patrolled construction sites around the clock, and crowd-funded legal defense reached $150,000. National HOA reform organizations joined our legal army, recognizing precedent-setting potential. Delilah hired expensive crisis management firms, spinning desperate narratives about outside agitators destroying community values. She pressured elderly neighbors with threats of increased fees to fund her legal battles, claiming my park would attract undesirable elements to their pristine paradise. But every fake controversy backfired spectacularly. Manufacturing environmental concerns, painting me as the villain, claiming property values would crash. Each lie just highlighted her own corruption. The harder she fought, the deeper she dug her own grave. My social media army reached 800,000 followers documenting this real-time battle between justice and petty tyranny. Number-sign Cabin Justice trended nationally as supporters shared HOA horror stories, creating grassroots momentum demanding accountability for suburban dictators everywhere. Sarah Martinez's investigative series won regional journalism awards, exposing systematic HOA corruption across Colorado. Other reporters picked up the thread, investigating similar schemes in communities nationwide. The ripple effect was magnificent. Sunday evening, I stood on my completed dock watching sunset transform Lake Serenity into liquid gold. The evening air carried scents of fresh sawdust and pine sap, mixed with the metallic tang of approaching storm clouds gathering over distant peaks. My phone buzzed with Agent Foster's text. Indictment sealed. Arrest scheduled Wednesday morning. You'll want front row seats. After months of harassment, vandalism, and intimidation, Delilah Thornfield was about to face justice in the most public, humiliating way possible. The final battle was about to begin, and this time the whole world would be watching her fall. Wednesday morning arrived with the crisp promise of justice, but Delilah wasn't going down without one final, desperate gambit that would make soap opera villains proud. She showed up at my cabin Tuesday evening driving a different car, a modest Honda that screamed, "I'm just a regular person, not a scheming real estate vulture." Gone was the designer outfit, replaced by khakis and a cardigan that probably came from Target. Even her hair looked less aggressively perfect. "Marcus," she said, voice dripping with manufactured humility, "I think we've both made mistakes here. Maybe we can work something out." She produced a briefcase, actual briefcase, like we were in some 1980s corporate thriller, and opened it to reveal neat stacks of $100 bills. The musty smell of old money mixed with her nervous perspiration as she counted out $500,000 on my kitchen table. "Cash offer," she continued, that predatory smile trying to masquerade as neighborly concern. "No lawyers, no hassles, you take this, I drop all legal actions, and we forget this whole misunderstanding ever happened." I let her finish the entire pitch, recording every word on my phone while she incriminated herself with bribery attempts that would make Chicago aldermen blush. When I refused, her facade cracked like cheap paint. "$1 million, she whispered desperately, "plus a written apology in the local newspaper. Please, Marcus, I'm begging you." The woman who'd spent months calling me people like you was now literally begging the blue-collar guy she'd tried to crush. The irony tasted sweeter than my grandmother's apple pie. But Delilah's desperation spawned even uglier tactics. Wednesday morning brought professional protesters to my construction site, hired agitators with printed signs reading, "Stop environmental destruction," and "Protect our mountain wildlife." These weren't local environmentalists. They were actors from Denver charging $200 per day to manufacture fake outrage. The performance was Academy Award-worthy terrible. Fake activists chained themselves to construction equipment with chains so flimsy a determined chihuahua could break them. They chanted slogans about pristine wilderness while standing next to a parking lot, their protest signs still bearing creases from fresh printing. Local police arrived looking confused and annoyed. Sheriff Rodriguez took one look at the circus and started checking permits and identification. Half the protesters couldn't explain what they were protesting, and 3 had outstanding warrants from previous scam operations. "Ma'am," Sheriff Rodriguez told the protest leader, "you're protesting a conservation project. That's like picketing a puppy rescue." But the manufactured chaos served Delilah's purpose, disrupting construction and creating negative media footage. My social media got flooded with bot attacks, death threats from fake accounts, and coordinated spam designed to silence my voice during the final countdown to her arrest. Property vandalism escalated to something approaching terrorism. Someone dumped toxic paint across the cabin's restored exterior bright orange industrial coating that required hazmat cleanup crews. The chemical smell burned our eyes and throats while specialized teams worked to remove contamination without damaging the underlying wood. The paint attack crossed a federal line. FBI agent Foster arrived with a full forensics team, treating my cabin like a crime scene. Watching federal agents dust for fingerprints on my front porch felt surreal-like, being inside a police procedural where the victim was a 25-cent real estate investment. "This escalation pattern suggests someone's facing imminent arrest," Agent Foster observed, photographing paint damage with professional detachment. "Desperate people make desperate choices." Then came the frame-up attempt that nearly worked. Thursday morning, DEA agents surrounded my cabin with enough firepower to invade a small country. Anonymous tip claimed I was manufacturing methamphetamine in the basement, using construction as cover for drug operations. The irony was breathtaking. They were searching a cabin that had appeared in hundreds of social media videos documenting every restoration detail. 3 hours of intensive searching found nothing except construction materials and my coffee maker, which apparently doesn't qualify as drug manufacturing equipment despite producing substances that dramatically alter consciousness. The investigation revealed the anonymous tip came from a burner phone registered to Delilah's address, another federal crime added to her growing collection. False reporting to federal agencies carries serious penalties, especially when it involves SWAT teams and wasted taxpayer resources. But the raid backfired spectacularly. Media coverage showed federal agents apologizing to me on camera, praising my cooperation while expressing frustration about false tips, wasting resources. My restraint and professionalism impressed law enforcement, while Delilah's increasingly unhinged tactics destroyed any remaining credibility. That evening, I sat on my dock watching storm clouds gather over Lake Serenity, their dark mass reflecting in still water that smelled like approaching rain and electrical tension. Lightning flickered in distant peaks while thunder rumbled like approaching justice. My phone buzzed with final confirmation from Agent Foster. "Arrests tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Media will be present. She chose the spotlight, now she gets to burn in it." 24 hours until Delilah Thornfield faced the consequences of her criminal empire. After months of harassment, vandalism, and escalating desperation, justice was about to be served with a side of very public humiliation. The storm was finally ready to break. Friday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, the monthly Whispering Pines HOA meeting transformed into the most spectacular public meltdown in suburban history. The community center overflowed with 300-plus residents, national media crews, and enough cameras to film a Hollywood blockbuster. Delilah Thornfield sat at the head table looking like a cornered animal in designer clothing, her usual perfect composure cracking around the edges like old paint. The air buzzed with nervous energy and the distant hum of news vans parked outside. "Ladies and gentlemen," Delilah began, voice carrying that practiced authority she'd wielded like a weapon for years. "We're here to address the circus that has invaded our peaceful community." She launched into a desperate performance worthy of Broadway, painting herself as the victim of a coordinated attack by outside agitators and corrupt media. According to her revisionist history, I was some kind of criminal mastermind who'd corrupted the legal system through bribery and manipulation. "This man," she declared, pointing at me with theatrical outrage, "has destroyed our property values, brought chaos to our streets, and turned our home into a tourist trap. I call for an emergency vote to dissolve this park project and restore order to our community." The crowd murmured some supportive, others clearly skeptical. Delilah's remaining allies nodded along, but their enthusiasm looked forced, like applause at a failing politician's rally. I stood up slowly, the squeak of my metal chair echoing through sudden silence. Every phone camera in the room swiveled toward me like synchronized dancers. "Thank you, Mrs. Thornfield," I said, voice calm as lake serenity on a windless morning. "Before we vote on anything, I'd like to share some information the community deserves to know." I clicked my laptop and the projection screen filled with Harold Whitmore's timeline of harassment, every citation, every threat, every illegal action documented with timestamps and evidence. The chronology was devastating, showing systematic targeting designed to force property abandonment. "This isn't about community standards," I continued, advancing to financial records Jerry Kowalski had uncovered. "It's about a criminal conspiracy to steal property worth $10 million. Gasps rippled through the crowd as I revealed the mineral rights discovery, Delilah's prior knowledge, and her family's crushing debt. The projection showed bank foreclosure notices, embezzlement evidence, and the beautiful truth about her phantom HOA's complete lack of legal authority. "Mrs. Thornfield has been running an illegal organization for 8 years, I announced, watching her face drain of color like water from a broken dam. "Every citation issued, every fine collected, every threat made, all criminal fraud." Delilah shot to her feet, desperation overriding tactical thinking. "These are lies, fabricated evidence. This criminal has bribed officials and..." The community center doors burst open like something from an action movie. FBI agent Rebecca Foster strode in, flanked by federal marshals, their badges glinting under fluorescent lights. The crowd's collective intake of breath sounded like wind through pine trees. "Delilah Thornfield," Agent Foster announced, voice cutting through chaos with surgical precision. "You're under arrest for fraud, extortion, embezzlement, and racketeering." The handcuffs clicked with finality that echoed through absolute silence. Delilah's face cycled through shock, rage, and finally resignation as federal agents read her rights. Her nephew Bryce tried sneaking toward the exit, but found himself face to face with another marshal. "Bryce Thornfield, you're under arrest for vandalism, witness intimidation, and conspiracy." The crowd erupted. Some cheered, others sat stunned, many pulled out phones to document the spectacular downfall happening in real time. Flash photography created a strobe effect as Delilah was led away in handcuffs, her designer outfit now looking ridiculous against Orange County Jail accessories. "Before they take me away," I called out over the noise, "I want everyone to know something important." The room quieted as I clicked to final presentation slides showing park development plans, job creation projections, and community benefit programs. The 25-cent Conservation Trust will provide 50 permanent jobs, fund local schools, and create Colorado's first sustainable mineral extraction program. Property values will increase 20%, not decrease. I paused, letting that sink in while camera crews captured every word. Mrs. Thornfield tried to steal this from all of us, not just from me, but from every family who deserves economic opportunity and environmental protection. The standing ovation started slowly, then built like an avalanche. People were crying, hugging, celebrating justice finally served after years of intimidation and abuse. Sheriff Rodriguez stepped forward, shaking my hand with genuine warmth. "Marcus, on behalf of this community, thank you for not backing down." As Delilah's arrest footage went viral, 2.3 million views within hours, I stood in that community center surrounded by neighbors who'd become friends, watching justice finally triumph over petty tyranny. The 25-cent cabin had cost one woman her freedom and given an entire community hope for the future. Sometimes the best revenge really is building something beautiful from the ashes of someone else's greed. 6 months later, I'm standing on that same dock where this whole adventure began, watching my 25-cent dream transform into something beyond my wildest imagination. Whispering Pines Park opened to 5,000 visitors on a crisp October morning that smelled like apple cider and fresh starts. Families explored hiking trails winding through golden aspen groves, children's laughter echoing across Lake Serenity, while parents captured mountain reflections that looked too perfect to be real. The educational center housed in my fully restored cabin hosts monthly workshops on property rights and legal self-defense. Last weekend, 200 people learned how to fight HOA abuse and predatory schemes. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on anyone. Lessons in battling corruption taught from a building someone tried to steal. Local businesses report 40% revenue increases from tourism. 3 new restaurants opened downtown, 2 hotels are under construction, and Pete Rodriguez hired 4 employees at his expanding hardware store. Economic prosperity flows like mountain streams. What happens when communities choose cooperation over exploitation? My plumbing business evolved into historic restoration specialist, handling projects across 3 states with a waiting list longer than Colorado winters. Turns out people love hiring the guy who fought the system and won. Plus, installing modern plumbing in century-old cabins has become my specialty. But the sweetest victory? I'm not alone in this paradise anymore. Sarah Martinez discovered that investigative journalism and home restoration make perfect partners. She moved into the cabin permanently, bringing her coffee obsession and talent for uncovering hidden stories. We're planning a lakeside wedding next spring, the world's first reception in a visitor center built from pure stubbornness and righteous fury. Justice came swift and satisfying. Delilah received 8 years federal prison plus $15 million restitution to victims. Bryce got probation and community service, spending weekends picking trash along trails he once sabotaged. Sometimes karma wears hiking boots. 12 families received settlement payments from restitution funds, finally compensated for years of harassment and illegal fines. The Phantom HOA was dissolved, replaced by a voluntary community association that actually serves residents instead of terrorizing them. The 25-cent Conservation Trust became a national model for sustainable development. We extract just enough minerals to fund operations indefinitely while protecting 95% of land permanently. Environmental groups call it revolutionary-proof conservation, and economics can dance together beautifully. Our annual Mountain Heritage Festival celebrates next month with 3 days of music, crafts, and storytelling, attracting visitors nationwide. Proceeds fund scholarships for students pursuing trades or environmental science, ensuring this community's bright future. Veterans receive free year-round camping, and the therapeutic mountain solitude has been remarkable. Watching former soldiers find peace beside the lake where I found my own healing reminds me some victories transcend money. The documentary 25 Cents to Freedom won Film Festival awards and plays monthly at our center. More importantly, it inspired similar fights against corrupt authority nationwide. I received dozens of weekly emails from people using our strategies to battle their own clipboard tyrants. The cabin itself became a shrine to persistence's power. Visitors touch those hand-hewn logs, reading plaques telling our story, how 1/4 investment became community salvation. My framed tax receipt hangs prominently, reminding everyone that small actions can change everything. Most evenings find me on this dock, watching sunset paint mountains in impossible colors while breathing air that tastes like pine needles and pure possibility. The gentle lap of waves against weathered wood mingles with distant loon calls and the soft rustle of aspen leaves catching evening breezes. Community potluck dinners happen monthly at the visitor center, neighbors sharing stories and homemade pie while children play on the shoreline. These simple moments watching families laugh together in a place that almost became another corporate victim remind me what we really fought for. Sarah often joins me for these sunset moments, her laptop balanced on the dock railing as she types tomorrow's stories. "What should we investigate next?" she asks, eyes sparkling with mischief. The answer always comes from you, our amazing community. Drop a comment sharing your worst HOA nightmare story. I read every single one, and some might inspire our next HOA Stories investigation. Sarah's already working on corrupt property management companies preying on seniors. Subscribe to HOA Stories if you love watching justice demolish petty tyrants with badges and clipboards. Hit that notification bell too. Next week I'm revealing how my neighbor tried stealing my driveway and ended up owing me his fence. Sometimes the best revenge really is building something beautiful from the ashes of someone else's greed. Welcome to HOA Stories, where David always beats Goliath.
That's all for today's HOA Madness. If watching justice serve itself made your day, smash that like button, share your thoughts down below, and make sure you're subscribed. More outrageous neighborhood showdowns are just around the corner.